The long dining table was draped in expensive velvet, the light from silver candelabras flickering across the room. My mother, no, I should call her Eleanor Vance now, was sobbing her heart out, clutching a young man about my age. Ethan, my boy, it's all my fault. This man, Ethan Vance, was the true heir to the Vance fortune. And I, Leo Crawford, was the fraud who'd been switched at birth and lived his life for over 20 years. Leo, you imposter, you cuckoo in the nest. After living in the lap of luxury on our dime for 2 decades, you still have the nerve to sit here and eat. Eleanor's bloodshot eyes snapped toward me, her voice shrill and piercing. I paused, a piece of butter-poached lobster halfway to my mouth. The meat was tender, the garlic herb butter was fragrant, but it was just a touch overcooked. A pity. I popped the lobster into my mouth, savoring it for a moment before I finally looked up at the heartwarming family reunion unfolding before me. Ma'am, it would be a shame to let good food go to waste, I said calmly. What did you call me? Eleanor hissed, recoiling as if I'd just stepped on her tail. What else? I set down my fork and dabbed my mouth with a linen napkin. Since he's your son, it doesn't seem right for me to call you Mom anymore. My gaze swept across the table. Eleanor, her face a mess of tears. Ethan, a smug, triumphant smirk on his face. Richard Vance, the man who'd been my father, looking conflicted and unable to meet my eyes. And, sitting in the corner, silent from the very beginning, was a woman so beautiful she could have been carved from ice. Serafina Frost, my fiancée, the CEO of Frost Industries, a woman rumored to be so cold she could drop the city's temperature by 5 degrees just by walking down the street. She just watched me, her stunning eyes holding no pity, no mockery, only the profound, bottomless chill of a frozen lake. You ungrateful snake. Eleanor was trembling with rage, pointing a finger straight at my nose. We raised you for 20 years, and you don't have a shred of gratitude. Get out of this house now. Everything you have, everything you're wearing belongs to us. You will not take so much as a piece of paper with you. Ethan fanned the flames from his side, looking down at me with a victor's pity. Don't be too hard on Mom, little brother. After all, you've been squatting in my spot for a long time. Once you're out of here, try to get a real job. Your days of living off other people are over. I smiled. Just a moment ago, when I'd been dropped into this novel, into the body of this pathetic fake heir, a voice had echoed in my mind. Ding! Host has been detected in the optimal environment for chilling, being universally despised. The ultimate slacker system has been activated. Starter pack. 1 unlimited limit black card. 1 deed to the pinnacle. A top-floor penthouse with river views in the heart of Bridgeport. Daily mission. Maintain a state of ultimate chill. Eat, drink, and relax every day to receive random rewards. I stood up, smoothing out the lapels of my ridiculously expensive, custom-tailored suit. Fina, I'll repay you for the last 20 years. I turned and walked toward the door, not feeling a single shred of attachment. Richard Vance's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but Eleanor grabbed his arm, stopping him. Let him go. Let him rot. I'd like to see how he survives without the Vance family name. I reached the grand front door, my hand just about to touch the handle when Serafina's cool, clear voice cut through the air behind me. Thou! I stopped and turned back to look at her. She was still sitting there, a snow lotus blooming on a glacial peak. She spoke slowly, her words like ice crystals. As for our engagement, I'll have my lawyers handle the dissolution tomorrow. Sound good? My reply was crisp. I pulled open the door and walked out. Behind me, I could hear Ethan's unrestrained laughter and Eleanor's vicious curses. Me? All I wanted was to find a good taco truck and grab some dinner. Night fell, and the smoky, savory air of a late-night food truck pod filled the street. The scent of sizzling meat, cilantro, and chili hung in the air, a mix that made my stomach grumble. Give me 3 carne asada tacos, 2 al pastor, and a 6-pack of Pacifico, I said, finding an empty plastic table in the corner. My suit felt ridiculously out of place here, drawing more than a few curious glances. I didn't care. The Vances had frozen every one of my bank accounts. Besides the clothes on my back, I had nothing. Oh, wait. No, I had the system's black card. The beer came quickly. I tilted my head back and took a long swallow, the cold liquid washing away the day's drama. Perfect. Just then, a head-turning red Ferrari pulled up to the curb. The driver's door swung open and a long, slender leg wrapped in black silk emerged, followed by the devastatingly beautiful, stone-cold face of Serafina Frost. The moment she appeared, the entire food truck lot went silent. Every eye, male and female, was locked on her. She walked directly to my table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. The scent of her expensive perfume instantly overpowered the smell of grilled meat. "You certainly seem relaxed," she said, her perfect eyebrows knitting together slightly as she looked at the beer in front of me. "Trying to be. Celebrating a new lease on life," I said, picking up a freshly made taco and taking a bite. The flavors exploded in my mouth. A flicker of something, surprise, crossed Serafina's eyes. She must have imagined me in any number of pathetic states after being kicked out. Depressed, furious, desperate. The one thing she hadn't imagined was me being this calm, enjoying myself, even. "Leo, I came to tell you that our engagement must be terminated," she stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. "I know. You mentioned it this afternoon," I said, taking a sip of beer. "You're a busy woman, Ms. Frost. You didn't have to come all this way for something so minor." My casual attitude seemed to throw her off balance. The old Leo had always been a nervous wreck around her, fawning and eager to please, like a dog begging for scraps. The man in front of her now was calm, his posture relaxed, as if he wasn't the one who'd just been thrown out on the street, as if he wasn't about to lose her, the perfect fiancée. This loss of control clearly bothered her. "Aren't you going to say something? Beg me, perhaps?" "Say what?" I cut her off, holding up another taco. "Want one? This place is pretty good." Serafina looked at the greasy, delicious-looking taco, her exquisite face a mask of pure rejection. She would never eat something like this. Just then, a couple of sketchy-looking guys at the next table let out a low whistle. "Hey, beautiful all alone? What are you doing with that pretty boy? Come have a drink with some real men." One of them, a bleach-blonde idiot, said as he got up and swaggered toward our table. The truck owner's face paled, but he didn't dare say a word. I frowned. Ding. Host's chill environment has been disrupted. Triggering random mission. Take out the trash. Reward. Grandmaster level combat skills. A massive stream of information flooded my brain. I could feel power surging through my limbs. "Get lost," I said without looking up, my voice flat and cold. Blondie froze for a second, then his face flushed with anger. "The hell did you just say to me, asshole?" He reached out to grab the collar of my suit. A flash of disgust crossed Serafina's eyes. She was about to signal her bodyguard. I moved, faster than a camera flash. I caught Blondie's outstretched wrist and gave it a gentle twist. Crack! The sharp sound of bones snapping echoed through the night. "Ag!" Blondie let out a scream like a slaughtered pig, his body curling up like a shrimp as cold sweat instantly soaked his hair. His buddies were frozen in place, so shocked they forgot to even drop the beer bottles in their hands. I let go. Blondie crumpled to the ground, cradling his mangled wrist and howling in agony. I picked up a napkin and slowly, deliberately, wiped my hands as if I were just brushing off some dust. Then I lifted my eyes, my cold gaze sweeping over the remaining thugs. "Anyone else want a drink?" My stare sent a shiver down their spines. Their beer bottles clattered to the pavement. They scrambled to help up their friend and stumbled away, practically falling over each other to escape. The entire lot was dead silent. Everyone was looking at me like I was some kind of monster, including Serafina Frost. For the first time, I saw genuine shock in those icy eyes. The Leo she knew was a useless playboy who couldn't even open a pickle jar. But the speed, the power, the sheer ruthless finality of that move. It was like I was a completely different person. "You know how to fight?" she finally asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. "Just some self-defense," I said, sitting back down and grabbing my last taco as if nothing had happened. Ding. Mission, take out the trash, completed. Grandmaster level combat skills have been delivered. I could feel a fundamental change in my body, a new level of physical mastery. Serafina stared at me, her expression complicated. This new man in front of her was a stranger. He was also dangerously attractive. She had assumed that after breaking the engagement, This man would be a piece of trash swept out of her life, disappearing without a trace. But now, it seemed things weren't going to be that simple. Leo, what exactly are you planning to do? She couldn't help but ask. Eat, I said. Serafina was speechless again. She was discovering that all her prized business negotiation skills were completely useless against this man. He was like a brick wall. You could punch it with all your might and only hurt yourself. This is my card. She pulled a gold-embossed business card from her purse and placed it on the table. If you need a job or run into any trouble you can't handle, you can call me. Consider it compensation from the Vance family for the last 20 years. With that, she stood up, reverting to her aloof, Ice Queen persona, and turned toward her Ferrari. I didn't even glance at the card. I just watched her go, a playful smile on my face. Compensation. No, Serafina Frost. You'll be the one coming to find me. Because from the moment I arrived, I'm the one writing the script for this world. Back at the Vance mansion, the lights were blazing. Ethan was pacing excitedly around his new room. It was Leo's old bedroom, 10 times the size of the dump he'd grown up in. The walk-in closet was filled with the latest season's designer clothes. Now this is what I call living. He ran a hand greedily over a leather sofa, his face alight with pure joy. Eleanor came in carrying a small, elegant bowl. Ethan, you must be tired. Have some of this yogurt to keep your strength up. Thanks, Mom. Ethan took the bowl and downed it in one go, then eagerly asked, Is that guy Leo really gone for good? With nothing? Of course, Eleanor said with contempt. I froze all his cards. He's dead broke. Let's see how he survives now. Perfect. A flash of satisfaction lit up Ethan's eyes. Mom, one more thing. Serafina Frost. She's my fiancée. We can't let that loser keep his hooks in her. At the mention of Serafina, Eleanor's expression grew eager. You're right. A woman as exceptional as Serafina is a perfect match for my Ethan. I'll go to the Frost family tomorrow and set things straight. We'll have the engagement transferred to you. Ethan rubbed his hands together in excitement. Just the thought of a goddess like Serafina made his blood run hot. He pulled out his phone, found Serafina's number, and dialed it immediately. The phone rang for a long time before she picked up. Hello. Serafina's cool voice came from the other end. Serafina, it's me, Ethan Vance. Ethan said, trying to make his voice sound smooth and magnetic. I'm the real Fiancée. We're going to be engaged soon, and I wanted to... Is there a point to this call? Serafina cut him off coldly. I just wanted to connect with you. Since we're going to be family and all, Ethan stammered, embarrassed. Not interested. Click. The line went dead. The smile on Ethan's face froze. That bitch, she hung up on me, he seethed, throwing his phone onto the bed. Just wait until I marry you. I'll show you who's boss. Eleanor rushed to comfort him. Don't be angry, Ethan. Serafina's just like that. She's cold to everyone. It'll be different after you're married. Ethan's face was dark. He blamed it all on me. It's all that loser's fault. He must have been bad-mouthing me to her, he said through gritted teeth. Mom, I can't just let him get away with it. I want to see him on his knees, begging me for forgiveness. I want him to learn what happens when you cross me. Of course, son. Whatever you want to do, your mother supports you, Eleanor said, doting on him. In a city like Bridgeport, it's easy enough for the Vance family to crush a nobody. A cruel light glinted in Ethan's eyes. Leo, you just wait. The next day, I woke up whenever I felt like it. I opened my eyes to floor-to-ceiling windows, and beyond them, the glittering river and the sprawling city skyline. This was the pinnacle, the most exclusive residence in Bridgeport. 100 floors, one apartment. Ding! Congratulations, host, for completing the Wake Up Naturally Chill mission. Reward, God-tier cooking skills. I stretched, feeling fantastic. With cooking skills like these, I'd never have to rely on takeout again. I walked into the kitchen, which was decked out with professional-grade appliances. The walk-in fridge was stocked with the finest ingredients from around the world. I pulled out a few things at random and whipped up a gourmet breakfast for myself. The taste? Perfection. After eating, I kicked back on a lounge chair on a massive balcony, soaking up the sun and contemplating my new existence. Ding-dong. The doorbell rang. I was surprised. Who could possibly be here? I opened the door to find a middle-aged man in a tailored suit and gold-rimmed glasses. He bowed respectfully. Mr. Crawford, good morning. I am your personal concierge, Mr. Sterling. Ah, system add-on. Made sense. What is it? Sir, your wardrobe and personal effects have been prepared according to your measurements. Also, the 3 vehicles you ordered have arrived. The keys are here. Mr. Sterling held out 3 key fobs. A Bugatti, a Rolls-Royce, and a Koenigsegg. Not bad. Pretty low-key. All right, just leave them on the counter, I said with a wave. Sir, there is one other matter, Mr. Sterling continued. The Vance family has publicly announced your disownment. Furthermore, Mr. Ethan Vance has used the family's influence to instruct all major corporations in Bridgeport not to hire you. Oh, I nodded. That was fine by me. Forbidding me from working? That was the best news I'd heard all day. Now I could focus on my real job. Chilling. Ethan's petty moves were like a child's tantrum. I understand. You're dismissed. After Mr. Sterling left, I went back to lounging. Meanwhile, at one of Bridgeport's most exclusive country clubs, Ethan Vance was holding court, surrounded by a crowd of rich kids. Ethan, man, it's good to have you back. You're gonna run this city. For real. That fake Leo, what a joke. He can't even compare to you. Ethan sipped his champagne, soaking in the flattery, a grin plastered on his face. Already had him blacklisted. He's probably scrounging for food right now, hiding under some bridge and crying his eyes out. Ethan laughed. You're the man, Ethan. Hey, speaking of which, I hear the great Serafina Frost is your fiancée. When's the big day? One of them asked with a wink. At the mention of her name, Ethan's smile widened. Soon, soon, he said, waving his hand dismissively. But in his mind, he was already planning it. Once he had completely and utterly crushed Leo, he'd go to the Frost family to propose. He would show everyone that he, Ethan Vance, was the real star of Bridgeport. Serafina was on edge all day. The mountain of paperwork on her desk might as well have been written in another language. She couldn't focus on a single word. Her mind kept replaying the image of Leo from last night. The calm way he ate his tacos. The lightning-fast move that snapped a man's wrist. The playful, detached look in his eyes when he looked at her. Everything about him was completely different from the Leo she remembered. Ms. Frost. Her assistant knocked and entered, placing a file on her desk. This is the background report you requested on Leo Crawford. Serafina sat up straight and immediately opened the file. The report was brief. Leo Crawford was thrown out of the Vance family. All his assets were frozen. Ethan Vance used his connections to have him blacklisted from every company in the city. And then, he vanished. What do you mean, vanished? Serafina frowned. We can't find any record of him, Ms. Frost. No hotel stays, no credit card transactions, no travel records. It's like he just fell off the face of the earth, her assistant replied cautiously. Serafina's heart sank for some reason. A man with no money, in a massive city like Bridgeport. Where could he go? Could he really be hiding under a bridge, just like Ethan said? The thought sparked a wave of irritation. Ms. Frost, Mr. Ethan Vance is on the line again. Should I put him through? The assistant asked. No, Serafina said coldly. She stood up and paced around her office. Could that man really be so fragile? No, she didn't believe it. The calm confidence he'd shown last night couldn't have been an act. He had to be hiding somewhere, planning something. An intense curiosity gripped her. She wanted to find him, to see what he was up to. Get the car ready, she ordered her assistant, grabbing her jacket. Half an hour later, her Ferrari was parked next to the food truck lot from the night before. Serafina got out, only to find a different truck in the same spot. Excuse me, she asked the new owner. Do you know where the man who was working here last night went? The new owner shook his head. No idea. This spot was empty when I got here this morning. A dead end. Serafina stood there, feeling a sense of frustration for the first time in a long while. On a strange impulse, she dialed Leo's number again. It rang and rang. Just as she was about to give up and hang up, he answered. Hello. His voice was lazy, and she could hear the sound of running water in the background. Where are you? The words flew out of her mouth before she could stop them. At the market. What? Serafina thought she'd misheard. Grocery shopping. Getting stuff for lunch, Leo said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Serafina was completely dumbfounded. She had imagined countless scenarios, but not a single one involved Leo Crawford casually shopping for groceries. Address, she said, practically through gritted teeth. After hanging up, she drove immediately to the address Leo had given her, the city's largest fresh seafood market. The noisy crowds, the wet floors, the air thick with the smell of fish and vegetables. Serafina, in her high heels, walked into the market with a look of disgust, feeling utterly out of place. And then, in front of a stall piled high with ice and shellfish, she saw the man she'd been looking for all morning. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, his head bent as he carefully inspected a king crab, haggling with the vendor. His focused profile, set against the chaotic backdrop of the market, looked strangely at peace and handsome. Serafina just stood there, momentarily mesmerized. "Come on, man, cut me a deal." "Look, this one's already missing a claw," I said, pointing at a massive, waving king crab and lying through my teeth. The vendor, an honest-looking guy, leaned in for a closer look. "What are you talking about, kid? The claw's right there." "Is it? Let me see." I leaned in, pretending to inspect it. Just then, I felt a pair of cold eyes on my back. I turned around and saw Serafina Frost, standing out from the crowd like a diamond in a coal bin. She was wearing a designer power suit and 4-inch heels. Her expression, an icy mask of indifference that clashed spectacularly with the grandmas and grandpas clutching their grocery bags all around her. "What are you doing here?" I asked, genuinely surprised. Serafina walked up to me, her gaze shifting from the king crab in my hands to my face, her frown deepening. "Leo, what kind of game are you playing?" "Grocery shopping. Can't you tell?" I said, wiggling the crab for emphasis. "You." She looked furious. "You've been kicked out of the Vance family. You have no money, and you have the nerve to be here buying king crab." "Who said I have no money?" I grinned, pulling the black card from my pocket and flashing at the vendor. "Hey, I'll take this one and that one over there. All of it. You take this, right?" The vendor's eyes went wide when he saw the card. People nearby started staring. Serafina was stunned. She recognized that card. It was the globally exclusive Centurion card. No spending limit. Card holders were the global elite. How could Leo possibly have one? "Where did you get that card?" she demanded, her voice sharp with suspicion. "It's mine. Is there a problem?" I said, not bothering to explain. I paid, grabbed my 2 giant bags of seafood, and started to walk away. Serafina followed me instinctively. "Leo, stop. You explain yourself right now." I ignored her and walked straight to the parking garage. She followed me the whole way, right up until I stopped in front of a brand-new Rolls-Royce Phantom, popped the trunk, and loaded the seafood inside. Serafina was completely frozen. She stared at the multi-million-dollar car, then back at me, looking as if her entire worldview had just been shattered. "This car, it's yours too." Her voice was trembling. "Yeah, just a daily driver." I slid into the driver's seat, ready to leave. Serafina suddenly wrenched open the passenger door and got in. "Give me a ride," she said coldly. Though her tone held a hint of panic, she didn't seem to notice herself. I glanced at her, then shrugged and started the car. The ride was silent as we pulled out of the market. Inside, however, Serafina's mind was a raging storm. A black card. $1 million car. This man, who the Vances had thrown away like garbage. What other secrets was he hiding? Suddenly, she felt that breaking their engagement might have been a terrible mistake. "Tonight, the Bridgeport Chamber of Commerce is holding its annual charity auction gala," she said suddenly. Hum," I replied, focusing on the road. "Ethan will be there representing the Vance family. He wants to buy the East Harbor development plot to prove himself." "Okay. Are you going?" she asked, looking at me. I smiled. Of course. Not only was I going, I was going to show Ethan Vance the true meaning of despair. The Bridgeport International Convention Center was a sea of sparkling gowns and sharp tuxedos. The annual charity auction was one of the most important social events of the year for the city's elite. Ethan Vance, dressed in a white suit, glided through the crowd with a champagne flute in hand, radiating confidence. Tonight, he was the star of the show. As the newly reinstated Vance heir, everyone wanted a piece of him. "Ethan, my man, that East Harbor plot has your name all over it tonight." "No doubt. Who else here has the deep pockets for a project that big?" Ethan soaked up the praise, grinning from ear to ear. He'd done his research. There were only a couple of serious competitors tonight, but with the full financial backing of the Vance family, securing the land was a sure thing. He was going to use this project to announce his triumphant return. Just then, a stir rippled through the crowd near the entrance. All eyes turned to see what was happening. I walked in, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. On my arm was Serafina Frost, looking absolutely ethereal in a silver evening gown. The moment we appeared, we captured the entire room's attention. Is that Leo Crawford? What's he doing here? I thought the Fiancée kicked him out, and he's with Serafina Frost. My God, what is going on? Whispers erupted everywhere. The smile on Ethan's face froze solid, replaced by pure shock and rage. He stormed over to us, his eyes locked on me, then shot a venomous, jealous glare at Serafina on my arm. Leo, what the hell are you doing here? Who let this trash in? Security, he bellowed. Before I could say a word, Serafina's icy voice cut in. He's with me. Do you have a problem with that? Ethan's face went from white to red. Serafina, why are you with him? He's a broke nobody now. Whether he's broke or not is none of your business, Serafina said, tightening her grip on my arm in a clear display of intimacy. And please call me Ms. Frost. The gesture made the onlookers gasp. Ethan was practically shaking with rage, feeling thoroughly and publicly humiliated. I patted Serafina's hand reassuringly, then looked at Ethan with a placid smile. If you're done yapping, get out of the way. Ethan looked like he was about to have a stroke. Just then, the auction began. I led Serafina to a table in the front row and sat down. Ethan could only retreat to his own seat, fuming and shooting daggers at my back. I wasn't interested in the first few items. Then, the auctioneer's voice boomed through the hall. And now, for tonight's final featured item, the East Harbor Commercial Development plot. Bidding will start at $500 million. Ethan sat up straight, instantly raising his paddle. $600 million. A few other developers joined in, and the price quickly climbed to $1 billion. Finally, it was down to just Ethan and the CEO of another major firm. $1.2 billion. Ethan yelled, gritting his teeth. This was nearing the top of his budget. His competitor hesitated, then lowered his paddle. The auctioneer began the final count. $1.2 billion going once. $1.2 billion going twice. A victorious smirk spread across Ethan's face. Just as the gavel was about to fall, I lazily lifted my paddle. $2 billion. The entire hall went silent. Every single person turned to stare at me as if I had grown a second head. $2 billion. Jumping from $1.2 billion straight to $2 billion. This wasn't a bid. It was a public execution. The auctioneer was stunned into silence. It took him a moment to recover. Sir, did you say $2 billion? He stammered. Is there a problem? I asked coolly. Ethan's face had turned a deep shade of purple. He shot to his feet, pointing at me and screaming, Leo, are you insane? Do you have any idea how much money that is? There's no way you can pay that. I demand you stop this farce. He's disrupting the auction. The auctioneer looked uneasy. After all, the news of my disownment was common knowledge. How could a penniless outcast possibly come up with $2 billion? I just smiled, said nothing, and pulled the black card from my pocket, handing it to a nearby staff member. Verify the funds. The staffer, looking nervous, scurried off to the back with the card. The entire room was on the edge of their seats, waiting. Ethan stared at the backstage door, muttering under his breath, Impossible, it's impossible. A moment later, the staffer ran back out. Following close behind him was the organizer of the auction himself, the president of the Bridgeport Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Maxwell. President Maxwell walked briskly to my table and gave me a respectful bow. Sir, your funds have been verified. Please accept our sincerest apologies for the oversight. The room exploded. Everyone was looking at me as if I were a god. Ethan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. He collapsed back into his chair, his face ashen. It's real. He really has $2 billion. How is this possible? Now, may I continue with the bidding? I asked the president. Yes. Of course, sir. Absolutely. Maxwell nodded vigorously. I turned my gaze to Ethan, a smirk playing on my lips. Well, Mr. Vance, are you still in? Ethan's lips trembled, but no words came out. The entire Vance family fortune was only a few billion. There was no way he could spend $2 billion on a single plot of land. $2 billion going once. $2 billion going twice. Sold for $2 billion. As the gavel came down, the East Harbor plot was officially mine. The room erupted in thunderous applause. To Ethan, each clap was like a slap across the face, leaving him dizzy and sick. He had lost, utterly and completely. After the gala, I was surrounded by a crowd of business tycoons, all eager to press their cards into my hand. Mr. Crawford, a true visionary. Mr. Crawford, we must have lunch sometime. I smiled and navigated the crowd with ease. Serafina stood silently by my side the whole time, watching me chat casually with men she herself had to look up to, a strange and wonderful light shining in her eyes. She was realizing she couldn't figure this man out at all. Across the room, Ethan Vance had become a forgotten joke. He slipped out of the venue unnoticed. The moment he got home, he got a call from Richard. On the other end of the line was his father's furious roar. Ethan, you useless, incompetent fool. Do you have any idea what you've done? Our biggest partner just pulled their funding from our main project because of the stunt you pulled tonight. Ethan Vance had just experienced his first catastrophic failure since his return to the Vance family. After the charity gala, I became the hottest new player in Bridgeport's high society. Ethan Vance, on the other hand, became its biggest punchline. I wasn't in any rush to develop the East Harbor plot. Instead, I continued my sacred mission of chilling. My days were spent either experimenting with new recipes at home or hunting down the city's best food. Ding! Congratulations, host, for completing the dine at a 3-star Michelin restaurant mission. Reward, God-tier piano skills. Ding! Congratulations, host, for completing the take a 2-hour nap mission. Reward, the voice of an angel. My skill tree was filling up fast. One day, I was having lunch at a new, high-end private kitchen when I got a call from an unknown number. Hello, is this Mr. Leo Crawford? A bright female voice asked. Speaking. Hi, my name is Chloe Reed. I'm a dancer. You helped me out at the food truck the other night. I wanted to thank you. I remembered her, the daughter of the vendor who the thugs had been harassing. It was nothing. To show my gratitude, I'd like to invite you to see my performance, if you're free. Her voice was hopeful, with a hint of nervousness. I thought about it. I didn't have anything else to do. Sure, send me the time and place. That evening, I went to the Bridgeport Grand Theater downtown. Chloe was performing in a modern dance piece. On stage, in a flowing white dress, she moved with an ethereal grace, like a forest sprite who'd wandered into the mortal world. I had to admit, she was incredible. After the show, I was about to leave when I saw something I didn't want to see near the stage door. A sleazy-looking middle-aged man with slick-back hair had Chloe by the arm and was getting a little too handsy. Come on, Chloe. You stick with me, and I'll make you the principal dancer. What do you say? Director Evans, please let go of me. I'm not interested, Chloe said, struggling to pull away. I recognized Director Evans. He was one of Ethan Vance's cronies. I frowned and walked over. Let her go. Evans turned, saw me, and did a double take. Well, if it isn't the great. Oh, wait, I mean the homeless dog, Leo Crawford, he sneered. Playing the White Knight? Take a look in the mirror, pal. You're a nobody. When Chloe saw me, her eyes lit up. Mr. Crawford, she cried, relieved. I'd advise you to mind your own business, kid, Evans said, emboldened by his connection to Ethan. I smiled. I walked right up to him and patted him on the cheek. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll give you 2 choices. 1, you slap yourself and get lost. 2, I slap you, and then I make sure you can never work in this city again. Evans's face changed. You wouldn't dare touch me. Do you know who my boss is? It's Ethan Vance. Ethan Vance. I laughed as if he'd just told the funniest joke in the world. Right now, he can barely save himself. I pulled out my phone and made a call. President Maxwell, it's Leo Crawford, the artistic director at the Grand Theater, a Mr. Evans. I don't want to see him in Bridgeport anymore. I hung up and looked at the pale, trembling director. You're fired. Instantly, Evans's phone rang. He fumbled to answer it. The theater manager's enraged roar came through the speaker. Evans, who the hell did you piss off? You're fired. Get your stuff and get out now. The phone slipped from his hand and clattered on the pavement. He stared at me in disbelief, as if looking at the devil himself. One phone call, and his career was over. Who was this Leo Crawford? Scram, I said coldly. Evans scrambled away as fast as his legs could carry him. Chloe looked at me, her big eyes shining with awe and gratitude. Mr. Crawford, thank you so much. No problem, I said with a wave, turning to leave. Mr. Crawford, she called out. Can I buy you a coffee? Looking at her hopeful expression, I nodded. We found a cafe near the theater. Chloe was easy to talk to, telling me all about her dreams of becoming a world-class dancer. She was a sweet, ambitious girl. We were having a nice time, until a frigid voice dropped into our conversation from above. Lau! I looked up and saw Serafina Frost, her beautiful face set like stone. She had appeared out of nowhere and was standing by our table, her gaze darting between me and Chloe like a pair of daggers. The temperature in the cafe seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ms. Frost. Chloe, who obviously recognized the queen of Bridgeport's business world, jumped to her feet, looking flustered. Having a nice time? Serafina's eyes landed on me, a cold, humorless smile on her lips. Still technically engaged to me, yet out on the town with another woman. You certainly work fast, Leo. I frowned. We already agreed to end the engagement. I've changed my mind. Serafina pulled out a chair and sat down right next to me, a clear territorial move. She looked at Chloe. Miss, my fiancé and I have some private matters to discuss. Perhaps you should leave. Her powerful aura was suffocating. Chloe blanched, gave me one last, wounded look, and whispered right, Mr. Crawford, Ms. Frost, I'll be going now. As Chloe fled, I turned to Serafina with a sigh. What do you think you're doing? What am I doing? Serafina leaned in close, her warm breath on my face, her eyes burning with a fire I'd never seen before. I want to know who she is. What is she to you? For the first time, I saw an emotion on her face I could only describe as jealousy. Was this Ice Queen finally about to lose her cool? She's a friend, I answered simply. A friend? She scoffed. A friend who needs you to play hero for her? A friend you meet for coffee late at night? Serafina, you're overstepping, I said, my own voice turning cold. Overstepping. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. She grabbed my hand and pressed it against her flat stomach. Leo, have you forgotten what you did to me? Thinking you could just walk away now? It's too late. You still here. What the hell was she talking about? I hadn't done anything to her. Then I saw the sly, wild glint in her eyes, and I understood. This woman was setting a trap. The Vance family was in trouble. Ever since Ethan's spectacular failure at the auction, the Vance family business had gone into a nosedive. Long-term partners pulled their investments, banks started calling in loans, and their stock price plummeted. In just 2 weeks, nearly half of the family's assets had evaporated. Richard Vance was at his wit's end, begging for help from his old contacts, but every door was slammed in his face. The same people who used to flatter him now avoided him like the plague. He knew there was an invisible hand behind it all, and he knew that hand belonged to the son he had personally cast out. Ethan had become a social pariah. His old drinking buddies crossed the street to avoid him. He spent his days at home, either breaking things or screaming at Eleanor. This is all your fault. If you hadn't kicked him out, none of this would be happening. Eleanor took the abuse without a word, crying silently. She regretted it too. She never imagined the adopted son she'd always looked down on could wield so much power. Then, the final blow came. Their largest creditor, Atlas Corp, gave them an ultimatum. If they couldn't repay a $5 billion loan within 3 days, the company would take them to court and seize all Vance family assets. $5 billion. It was a death sentence. Richard Vance was completely broken. His hair seemed to turn gray overnight. It's over. The family is finished. He muttered, slumped on the sofa. Suddenly, an idea seemed to strike Eleanor. Her eyes lit up. Richard, we still have one option. We could go to Leo. He's so rich now. If he's willing to help, the family can be saved. Richard looked at her, then gave a bitter laugh. Go to him? We threw him out like garbage. Why would he ever help us? He has to. Eleanor insisted frantically. We raised him for 20 years. He can't be that heartless. I'll beg him. I'll get on my knees and beg him. Ethan, who was listening nearby, clung to this last shred of hope. Yes, Dad, Mom's right. Let's go to him. If we just apologize, he has to have a soft spot for us. He had conveniently forgotten how he'd personally humiliated me. Richard was silent. It was their only chance. To save his company, He had to swallow his pride. All right, he said, the words heavy in his mouth. Tomorrow, we'll go to him together. The next morning, I was still lounging in my bed at the Pinnacle when Mr. Sterling informed me that the 3 members of the Vance family were waiting for me in the lobby. I smiled. The inevitable had arrived. Let them wait, I said, rolling over and going back to sleep. Down in the lobby, Richard, Eleanor, and Ethan stood like statues, enduring the curious stares of everyone who walked by. They waited for the entire morning. Their anxiety turned to impatience, then to desperation. It wasn't until noon that I finally took the elevator down, still in my bathrobe. "Lau!" Eleanor cried, rushing toward me as if I were a savior. I sidestepped her. She stumbled, nearly falling. "Leo, please, I'm begging you, save the Vance family," she pleaded, dropping to her knees right there in the lobby, tears streaming down her face. "We were wrong. We know we were wrong." Ethan ran over, forcing out a few crocodile tears. "Brother, I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken your place. I shouldn't have treated you like that. For the sake of Mom and Dad raising you for 20 years, please give us a hand." Richard walked over and gave me a deep, formal bow, his voice hoarse. "Leo, I was wrong. If you're willing to help, everything the family has is yours." I watched this pathetic display and almost laughed. I walked to a sofa, sat down, and poured myself a glass of water. "You want my help?" "Fine," I said calmly. The 3 of them lit up with hope. "But I have 2 conditions. Anything. We'll agree to anything," Eleanor said eagerly. I held up one finger. "First, I want 100% of the shares in the Vance Corporation. You 3 walk away with nothing." Their faces fell instantly. "Second," I continued, my eyes landing on Ethan, a cold smile touching my lips, "I want him on his knees to bark like a dog." "Leo, don't you go too far." Ethan exploded in a mix of shock and fury. He never imagined I'd demand something so humiliating. "Too far?" I scoffed. "When you threw me out like a dog, you didn't think that was too far. Now that you're crawling back to me, you expect me to just forget about it." I stood up and looked down on them. "Those are my terms. Take them or leave them." "Oh, and by the way," I added, "Atlas Corp's deadline is 5 p.m. today." With that, I turned and walked away, not giving them a second glance. Behind me, I could hear Ethan's enraged shouts and Eleanor's hopeless sobs. It was 4:50 p.m., 10 minutes to the deadline. My phone rang. It was Richard. We agree." His voice on the other end was tired and full of shame. I hung up and called my legal team to start the transfer. Half an hour later, I was in the chairman's office on the top floor of the Vance Corporation Tower. It had a new owner. The 3 Vances stood off to the side, looking like defeated roosters. I sat down in a large leather chair that used to be Richard's and looked at Ethan, who was kneeling in front of me. "Let's begin." Ethan's face was beet red, his whole body trembling. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a venomous, humiliated rage. "Woof!" He finally made the sound. It was barely a whisper. "Louder. Didn't you have breakfast?" I said, cleaning out my ear. "Woof, woof, woof." Ethan shut his eyes and barked, loud and clear. Eleanor covered her mouth, sobbing silently. Richard turned his head away, unable to watch. "Good," I nodded, satisfied. "Now all of you can get out." They shuffled out of the building they had once been so proud of, completely broken. From this day forward, the Vance family name was erased from the city of Bridgeport. I stood before the massive windows, looking down at the city below. Just then, the office door opened. Serafina walked in, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She came up behind me and gently wrapped her arms around my waist. "Is it over?" she asked, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Yeah, it's over. I held a press conference today," she said, resting her cheek against my back. "Oh, what about?" I told them. She paused. Then her voice became firm and absolute. "That I, Serafina Frost, will be marrying Mr. Leo Crawford next month." I froze. I turned around to face her. Her expression was a mix of nervousness, anticipation, and an undeniable, domineering boss-like command. "Is this a proposal?" I raised an eyebrow. "No." She shook her head. Then she stood on her toes and pressed a kiss to my lips, cool at first, then burning with heat. "It's a notification." The wedding took place a month later, just as she'd announced. It was on a private island, a massive event that was the talk of the business world. I had become the most envied man in Bridgeport. I had unimaginable wealth and had married the ice goddess every man dreamed of. That night, after the wedding, Serafina, in her white dress, had shed all her icy armor. She was curled up against me like a young girl. "Leo, I never used to believe in fate," she said, looking up at me, her eyes sparkling. "But now I do." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Me too." Life after the wedding was peaceful and sweet. Serafina, the untouchable queen in public, would get jealous and pout if I looked at another woman for too long. She would try to cook for me, a clumsy, adorable disaster that I always ended up cleaning up. Chloe Reed became one of the country's top dancers. She would occasionally send me tickets to her shows, always with a little smiley face drawn on the envelope. As for the Fiancées, I sent them enough money to live comfortably for the rest of their lives, on one condition. They were never to set foot in Bridgeport again. I heard Ethan couldn't handle the fall from grace and had a breakdown. He was in a long-term care facility now. And me? I continued my grand mission of chilling. Today, I was lounging on the balcony while Serafina fed me grapes she'd peeled herself. Ding! Congratulations, host, for completing the Be Pampered by Wife Ultimate Chill mission. Reward: unlocking the universal chill map. I looked at the beautiful, smiling woman in my arms, then out at the endless blue sky. I let out a contented sigh. Yeah, I could get used to this. End.